What it do, mortals? It's your boy, Seth the Profane of Seattle. For those of you who don't know, I am the second most powerful demon lord in all of the underworld, and commander of 50 legions. If my name didn't give it away, I haven't always been a demon. In fact, I'm a relatively new hire. Still, don't let my inexperience fool you. I'm a pretty big deal down south. I'm back in your world on a very special errand for Satan herself. And despite my important task, I couldn't help but check on good old Mr. Creep's YouTube channel. We don't have internet in hell after all. Fortunately for me, your horrific tales didn't disappoint and they left me feeling inspired. Transcribed below is my story, how a 22-year-old hipster from Seattle became Satan's left-hand man. Take notes, and with any luck, you could be next. I graduated from college in early 2015, after racking up a modest $80K in debt. Like most graduates, it didn't take me long to realize that the real world is a pretty crappy place. While all my college friends moved away and landed jobs paying $60,000 or more, I ended up sweeping floors for $12 an hour for 60 hours per week. If that wasn't bad enough, I was drowning in credit card debt, gaining weight, and still living with my parents. Within a year, my girlfriend had left me for some guy with more money, bigger muscles, and a nicer car. I didn't blame her. Even my own parents were sick of me by that point. In their minds, I was a massive waste of potential, pushing back their retirement. On July 3rd, 2016, things were feeling pretty dismal. So I did what any rational 20-something would do, and I tried to think of any way to get out of my current situation. Unfortunately, I probably didn't pick the best way. I fell into a colorless tunnel, only to crash into the ground with the momentum of a runaway truck. Horrible, searing pain caused my vision to fade in and out. When I finally came to, I was lying face down on an obnoxious red, shag-carpeted floor. What in God's name? I scanned the room in a fear-fueled daze. Aside from the horrible carpet choice, the room looked like a drab, generic waiting room. There is a single row of chairs against the back wall, and a clerk's window manned by a middle-aged man. It kind of reminded me of a dentist's office, minus the hideous carpet, of course. Above the window was a simple sign that read, "Check-in." There were also 2 wooden doors on each side of the window, labeled Heaven and Hell, respectively. My heart thumped in my chest as I realized the finality of my actions. I had just forced my hand out of my own life, and I was awaiting judgment in some kind of twisted, DMV-like afterlife. A curt voice interrupted my horror. "Next, please." Upon pulling myself off the floor, I could see the man at the window staring me down. He wore khakis and a gray vest, had graying hair and large round glasses. He looked absolutely dead inside. I stared at him dumbly, like a deer in headlights waiting to be run over. "Next," he said, louder this time. He got my attention that time, causing me to stumble to the window. The man wrinkled his brow, looking me over before picking up a script and reading aloud. "Dear departed, before you ask, I'm Charles and this place is Purgatory. You're not in heaven, nor are you in hell. This is the in-between where you shall receive your assign." I must have looked stupid because he put the script down suddenly before staring blankly at me. "Look, son, let's not drag this out. You're Seth Foster, right?" I nodded. "And you know what you did to get out of your life. You're going to hell. You know, lakes of fire, eternal torment." My heart sank as I stood there, frozen in terror. All I had wanted was a way out. I didn't really want to die. I didn't know that I would go to hell just for that. It's not like I killed an innocent person. Think about it, you killed an innocent person, kid. What did you ever do to anyone? Charles stamped a form and stapled it to a packet of other papers before extending them to me and gesturing toward the hell door. I reached out to grab the papers in defeat before he all but wrenched them from my hand. He was quiet for a minute as he combed through more paperwork. Well, this makes my life harder. I spelled your middle name wrong. Charles fumed. So, does this mean I don't go to hell? I asked hopefully. Oh no, you'll still burn for eternity. It just means that I get reamed out and you have to talk to my boss. Before I could react, I plummeted through the familiar tunnel once again. Only this time, I could see the ground on the other end. It was hard to make anything out, but I could recognize a small, lone wooden shack on a beach. I fell faster than before and came crashing through the roof of the shack. I looked around in shock and terrible pain, as an equally confused, robed man stood up from behind an enormous desk. The man's voice boomed impossibly loud. Really, Charles, again? Before I could ask anything, the man read my mind. Yes, I'm God, and yes, you are still going to hell. I just need to fix your paperwork. Before God could say anything else, I did something incredibly stupid. I told him how horrendous the carpet choice in Purgatory was. The creator of the universe stared at me in complete bewilderment, filled with rage. In an instant, he grew to an unfathomable size and clenched me in his fist. Fire and brimstone aren't enough for you, you blasphemous worm. No mortal has ever disrespected me like this. I should flay your soul. His voice echoed through the universe. I grimaced, expecting to be crushed into a pulp until I reappeared in God's office once again. He stood in front of me, thankfully having reverted back to normal size. His expression was softer, and he wore a wide grin. And with that being said, you are absolutely right. That's what happens when you give Lucy any kind of creative control. She ruins everything. Lucy? I asked, still shaking from my recent brush with eternal damnation. Oh, sorry, you know her as Lucifer. She's pretty hot too, you know. He said as he took a seat at his desk and began scribbling on my paperwork. By this point, I was dreading whatever dreadful fate God could think of. He was probably writing down all sorts of creative torments for Satan to inflict on me. He continued his meticulous scrawling before glancing at me. You know, we had to compromise on that waiting room. Her original idea was just ridiculous, but she's absolutely venomous, so I ceded the carpet selection to her. A horrible idea, really. God held my paperwork out to me, but before I could grab it, it turned to dust. I shivered, thinking that he had devised some new horrific way to punish me for my outburst. Oh, relax, Seth. Despite your insolence, you're the first mortal to question that vile carpet. I simply can't let you burn forever. It's a matter of principle. God rubbed his forehead, clearly thinking carefully before speaking again. But I can't let you into heaven either. You know, what you did and all. I wondered what he meant. When I spent eternity in Purgatory with Charles, to be honest, that didn't seem any better than hell. We'll have to give you a job. I, however, do not have any openings that you would be suited for. Only the holiest of individuals get those jobs. And your Sunday service attendance record is mediocre at best, God said with a chuckle. Confusion sank its claws deeper into me. None of this could be real. This had to be some kind of nightmare. I was probably in a medically induced coma after being found, somehow clinging to life, by my parents. God pulled out a massive, dusty tome and perused through it. Oh, you're college educated, so you'll love this. How about a Reaper of Mortal Flesh? It's a mid-level job in the 3rd level of hell. A what? I asked. God shrugged his shoulders at my question. I couldn't even tell you. It's that or Purgatory with Charles, though. It didn't take me long to weigh my options. On one hand, I had an eternity of hellish torture, and on the other, I had an eternity of immeasurable boredom. It's not like that I had any luck finding a job in life, and now I had God himself offering me a mid-level position. I'll take it, I said. Before I could say anything else, my skin melted away from my bones, allowing my insides to become my outsides. I writhed about on the ground, looking at God in horror, as my bones snapped and bent in a slew of horrible ways. I had trusted him, and he betrayed me. Just before I died by some miracle, my skin regrew, replaced by thick red scales. 2 razor-sharp pairs of claws replaced my fingers, and I could feel something heavy on my back, as if I was wearing a backpack. "What did you do to me?" I barked in a voice much harsher than my own. "Well, if you're gonna do the job, you need to wear the uniform," God said with a shrug. God snapped his fingers, and yet again, I hurtled through the putrid, sulfuric air towards the ground. This time, the ground below was a black, mirror-looking material. Obsidian. Below me were mountains of obsidian stretching as far as the eye could see. I flailed about wildly, trying to avoid a surely painful landing. And to my complete horror, the backpack sensation on me had shifted. The terror of falling had changed to elation, as my new wings carried me over obsidian cliffs. After what felt like hours of flying, I came to a stretch of what appeared to be noxious swamps. In the swamps below me were hundreds of red-scaled, naked humanoid figures, pulling normal humans from these swamps as they screamed. The creatures whipped the humans with vicious-looking flogs before binding them and throwing them into massive wooden carts. They were harvesting humans. I didn't want the horrific creatures to see me and throw me in the cart too, and so I pressed on, not going in any particular direction. A few minutes later, the silhouettes of a massive city appeared in the distance. The towering ramparts appeared to be made of the same obsidian as the mountains that I had already flown over. I had a hunch that this was where I needed to go, so I kept flapping my wings, not wanting to be on the ground with whatever those things were. Before I reached the city, I saw and smelled one last disgusting sight, and that was the carts of people being unloaded and herded into wooden buildings like cattle. Pens which were filled with flocks of humans surrounded these buildings. I didn't need my worthless bachelor's degree to tell me that these buildings were slaughterhouses for humans. I kept flying, not wanting to meet the butchers who operated the slaughterhouses. Eventually, I came to the city walls. They were towering at least 100 feet high. My first mistake was trying to fly over the wall. A heavy boulder smashing into my ribs caused me to crumple to the ground in front of the city gate. I tried to run, but I found myself in the iron grip of another demon. Before I could fight back, the monstrous behemoth held a large, serrated sword to my throat. "Speak thou name, or I'll gut you like a squealing hog," it roared. "Seth, I'm Seth. God sent me here to be the new reaper of immortal flesh. Don't gut me," I begged the creature. The behemoth dropped me immediately and helped me off the ground. "My lord, 1,000 apologies. I am Balak the Defiler, guardian of the West Gate," he said. It's fine, I guess. Could you please just tell me where I'm going?" Balak bowed to me before roaring once more. "Oh, Shrek, come hither, you pathetic swine." I gasped as a hideously deformed, goblin-esque creature emerged from the gate and threw himself at Balak's feet. "Master, I live to serve," the creature sniveled. "Oh, Shrek, you will lead Lord Seth, the profane, to the Citadel." Without another word, Shrek grabbed my hand and began running through the city streets, toward a massive obsidian tower in the center. A slew of evil-looking, disease-ridden creatures filled the streets of hell. Many looked different from each other. Some were huge, while others were small like children, but still, they were all performing one vicious act of torture or another on some poor soul. At one point, I repressed a gag as I saw a creature that resembled Shrek, flailing a man and hanging his skin from a pole like a gruesome flag. When the stroll had ended and I had witnessed the perversions of hell, we had reached the Citadel, a truly awe-inspiring structure, taller than anything I had ever seen, including the surrounding walls. Shrek did not show any sign of being tired from the trek, and proceeded to all but drag me up thousands of stairs. After hours of climbing, we had reached the throne room. Sitting on the throne against the far wall was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. She had long, flowing black hair, blood-red eyes, and was wearing a scant dress that barely covered anything. God was right. Satan is hot. My jaw dropped to the floor as Lucifer approached me, like a lion stalking a prey. "Aren't you just magnificent, Seth of Seattle? You'll do well here in hell," she mused, running a finger down my chest. Believe me, it was awkward. Imagine having sexual tension with the deceiver of humanity. "You don't seem that evil," I blurted out. Upon hearing this, her elegant body contorted into a demon, with massive fangs and claws on the hind legs of a goat. "Is this more fitting?" she hissed in my ear. I swallowed in fear before sheepishly nodding. "Yeah, hard pass." "Good," she whispered in my ear before transforming back. "Shagor the Dreadful will be your supervisor. You'll help keep our slaughterhouses full until you fully mature. After that, it'll be your responsibility to feed all of hell." The slaughterhouses are about as terrible as one would imagine, and Shagor as well, dreadful. The upside is that I was good at my first job. Within a year, I had fixed a food shortage that had been plaguing hell for millennia. My solution: a citywide purge of the weakest demon class. Fewer mouths to feed means more flesh for the rest of us. After my resounding success, Lucifer, or Lucy, as I get to call her now, rewarded me handsomely. She gifted me a fortune in gold, command of 50 legions, and made me her left-hand man, if you know what I mean. Despite my close relationship with Lucy, I still haven't told her that her taste in carpet sucks.